nerd family, welcome once again to the Poindexter Lounge. My name is Enosh, aka Enosh Fett, along with the lovely
Tifftastic.
And today,
Isaac Juan Kenobi.
that's right, and today we are talking and doing a review
Yes.
of the DC animated movie Reign of the Supermen, which was just released this week on Blu-ray and DVD, and then also on the DC streaming service, DC Universe.
So you know we had to watch it.
Yes, and so this, of course, is the sequel to the movie that came out last year, The Death of Superman.
Yes.
Where they finally made an actual Death of Superman, trying to go off of the original storyline. The very first DC animated movie that came out in this line of movies was actually Superman Doomsday, which completely took liberties with everything. And so today we're going to talk about these movies. We'll be referencing The Death of Superman. So if you're not seeing either of these movies, just know that there will be spoilers. We will be talking about the plot points and important things that happen. And so you need to be aware of that. But we're going to jump right in because these two movies kind of go together.
Yes, they do.
So The Death of Superman followed loosely the Death of Superman storyline from the comics. It was not exact. The issues that I had with the Death of Superman movie was that I don't understand why they can't just follow the story. There's these other DC animated movies that follow these stories to a T. They're excellent and people love them. I don't understand why it's the Superman ones all of a sudden that we just got to we're just going to change it and we're going to go in different
And you just got to deal with it.
directions and you're just going to have to deal with it. Also, it didn't make any sense to me or the other people who watched this movie, apparently, because even though it was the Death of Superman storyline from 1993, they used the animation style as if it was the New 52.
Yeah.
For Superman and for the rest of the
Wonder Woman's outfit, the way that it looked.
And for the rest of the heroes. And so it does not make much sense at all, but that's what they did. And so that's where we're at. And so now we're going to talk about Reign of the Superman. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Tiff, what were your thoughts initially of Reign of the Superman?
I liked it, and I had some questions myself just because you had given me the comics, but I hadn't read some of them, and so there were certain characters that popped up and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But you were able to actually show me, explain where I understood. They seemed to follow the storyline. It seemed a little bit to, having Superboy with Lex and all that.
The characters are there. The characters
the
are
look, I guess I'm trying to think of, the look, the style that showed up in the comics. Not necessarily the storyline, but the way that they made the characters look. So
the characters are there, and the
Superboy, Steel,
the essentials.
Eradicator.
The essentials are there, but even still with this movie, it's kind of one of my complaints is that they didn't follow the Reign of the Superman storyline. Now I'm going to tell you something. So I've always been a Superman fan my whole life. It wasn't though until the Death of Superman that I actually started collecting comics.
Which is funny.
Yeah, I would buy a comic here or there. But I was about 16 years old when the Death of Superman happened, and so that was when I first had my own disposable income, where I could go and weekly buy comic books, right? And so I would go to the comic book shop, me and my friend Rusty, and we would go and buy comics, and we were totally into the Superman line. And so the thing is that when Reign of the Superman hit, to me, it's a great story that's in the comics. I don't know why they couldn't follow it because nothing in this movie resembles that story at all, except for the fact that there's 4 superpowered beings. Superman gets put into a regeneration chamber and comes back with long hair and in a black suit. And so
but he looked very 90s because he had the long hair and he had the 5 o'clock shadow.
So
the
aesthetically,
suit.
it looked the part. But the whole storyline where they have Darkseid controlling Hank Henshaw to create these, this army of people and stuff. None of that happens.
That's what I was wondering because seeing that, it seemed a little different, but it was also.
Yeah,
it looked like it was something that.
In Reign of the Superman, Hank Henshaw is basically he's on a vendetta thing. He wants to destroy Superman's name. He wants to run it through the mud, and he wants to destroy the world because he's angry, because he feels he does blame Superman. That did come out in this movie. He blames Superman for the death of his family, of his wife. And that was always kind of a take on the Fantastic Four, where his family, they were astronauts and stuff, and so their shuttle got blown up, and he survived somehow, and yet his family did not, and so he blamed Superman because Superman was not able to do that. And so leading up to that, nobody knew. I mean, one of the great things about the Reign of the Supermen storyline was that when they did it, they pulled from stories that had been around for a while. Like that Hank Henshaw story had been a couple of years before any of this happened, and nobody would have thought that was Hank Henshaw.
Isn't that the same Hank Henshaw that they have on Supergirl?
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
Okay.
But yeah. But it's not. But so
it is, but it isn't.
Yeah. So the thing is that the cyborg Superman, he came, to try to convince the world that he was Superman, and basically give them a false hope, and he destroys Coast City. He completely destroys Hal Jordan's hometown completely, and builds this big war kind of engine city on top of it, and is going to take over the planet, and then Superman ends up coming back. And in that, John Henry Irons, very similar to this, he's a weapons expert and stuff. He's basically kind of Iron Man,
Super Iron Man.
Pretty much. And
with a mallet.
And they did have it in this movie where Superboy is a clone of Lex Luthor and Superman. Yep. So that was there. And that part was there. And the Eradicator actually was probably the closest to what the Eradicator was, because the Eradicator was a Kryptonian technology that was there to protect Kal-El and protect Kryptonian ways of life. And so the Eradicator goes and steals Superman's body out of his tomb, because he would have died if he was left in his tomb.
Yeah, because he had no sun to regenerate.
But they put him in the regeneration chamber, and he was able to heal. And then the Eradicator, though, kind of dispenses his own kind of justice.
Yeah.
And so he does that in this movie, where it's like, it doesn't matter if you're just a petty thief or you're
breaking the law. And
you're breaking the law, you deserve to die. And so that part was true, and that part was good. There's so many parts in the original story that are just such great things. And I tell any of you out there, if you have not read Reign of the Supermen, if you've not read the whole Death of Superman, where he fights Doomsday, and then of course Funeral for a Friend, which is the immediate afterwards. It shows the after effect. I mean, because they didn't really show that either. They didn't show a lot of the after effect of what the Justice League went through, what they were all thinking. I mean, there was a little bit of it, just a smidge
at the beginning.
But they kind of glanced over it and just kind of went straight on. And then they got rid of the Justice League, and that wasn't part of the story at all.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Where they sent the Justice League to some other dimension or whatever, that wasn't part of the story at all.
But I have to say, I loved their version of Green Lantern and Flash in this.
Yes.
They are hilarious. The comedy, it was good. But not knowing the storyline, like,
it was still a good story.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is not knowing the story like you do. I can't be, to the point of, well, they didn't follow the story like I would for other things that I'm like gung-ho about. But not knowing the story like you do, I still enjoyed it and thought it was easy enough to follow along and, for the most part, understand it. I was just asking more questions to you, knowing how well you knew the storyline.
Yeah, and so I will say that, it wasn't that it was a bad story. It was an entertaining story. It was a very good story based around some similar aspects of the death of Superman. It was much, much better than Superman Doomsday, because in Superman Doomsday, they didn't even try. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with the Reign of Superman, didn't have anything to do with the four characters. There wasn't the mystery. That was another thing that I felt that this movie didn't deliver on either, was during the Reign of Superman comic book series, it was literally a mystery that they were putting out, was one of these guys is Superman. Who is it? Like, who is the real Superman? And that was the whole thing, was like Cyborg Superman is is Superman come back, brought back with Kryptonian technology, right? So that, he must be the real Superman. And then it was like, Superboy, how is he, maybe he was rebirthed or something, and so he's really the real Superman. Or John Henry Irons was like the last person that Superman saved before he died. So the thought was that his essence was transferred into John,
Super essence.
into John Henry Irons, and so he was continuing Superman's work, and somehow maybe he was harboring the spirit of Superman inside for that. And then of course there was the Eradicator, who looked, sounded, and everything just like Superman, but was much harsher and stuff. And so it was like, maybe, well, he's gone through death, right? Maybe he's gone through a lot of stuff, and maybe it made him angry, right? And so so all those things, and so it was the mystery every week was like, hey, is this guy the real Superman? Is this guy the real Superman? And then at the end you find out none of them really. You find out none of them were really the real Superman. That the real Superman, had to come back and so
all their butts.
Yeah, he did, man. He came back even non-powered. I mean, it was just a great classic outfit that now everybody loves. I mean, even when Justice League came out last year, what was everybody clamoring for? They wanted to see the black suit with the silver S. I mean, that's what people wanted. So it's something that's still to this day in people's minds. Now, Isaac, what did you think of this? Did you ever read the comics?
I read The Death of Superman.
Okay.
I read that one.
Okay.
I haven't read
Funeral for a Friend. That's where I'm at. I read The Death of, but not Funeral.
I haven't read those, but I know bits and pieces of each of those two stories.
Okay.
I really like the overarching story, like between Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman. As I liked in The Death of Superman how it wasn't easy for everybody to go up against the Doomsday. Like they kind of like kept their distance from Doomsday until Superman came.
Yes.
So I like
the
that.
Respect there, yeah.
And then the Reign of the Superman, it was like you said, is like in the comics they posed the mystery of who, like if those were actually Supermen or if none of them were, and they didn't really do that in this.
No.
And then I liked that it wasn't easy like to go up against Cyborg Superman. And that I really like the Justice League thing, like you said.
Yeah.
Like there's bits and pieces of things I liked in this and I didn't like, but I liked at the end how when Superman was fighting Cyborg Superman and Lois noticed that the sun was coming over, and then she tried to open the, I can't remember what it's called, like the sun blinds or something.
Okay, yeah.
In the watchtower, and Lois automatically thought, oh yeah, I gotta open those so that way he gets his powers back. And I caught on to that really quick, and I was like, oh yeah, he gets powered by Earth's sun. So I thought that was cool at the end.
Yeah. I liked how Superboy interacted with Superman.
Yeah.
Once he found out that he was a clone and stuff, and like asking him questions like, well, can I come stay with you? And like, can I call you Dad? Like stuff like that. Those were all really.
When Lex was trying to tell him, he's like, I'm the one that created you, and he ripped off the patch and threw it on the ground when he took off, and I was like, that total teenager.
And I will say this too. That was Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor was represented very well in this movie.
Just didn't care.
And I love even the fact when he left
that guy and he like opened up the thing and all the creatures came towards that guy that was supposedly helping him.
Yeah.
Who created the clone of Superboy.
Yep.
Just let him go. Let him die.
Well, and even when the Eradicator shows up and is gonna shoot. Is gonna blast Lex Luthor with his rays that he shoots out of his hand, and Lex grabs Mercy and like pulls her in front of him, and like I think he says like thank you or something like that. And she goes for what? And like, right there, that's for what. So like
it
watching this,
cold-heartedness.
I could definitely not see John Cryer playing that character.
Yeah.
No, but I could see Rosenbaum.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Michael Rosenbaum would have done phenomenal.
Would have been a tasty movie.
But then it was really cool to see him admit defeat too. Like when like everything's hitting the fan, and they're like, and Lois says something about like that's really Superman, and he's like, for once I'm glad that he is alive.
Yeah.
Like because in the end Lex knows when.
And he helped bring back the Justice League.
Yes.
Some other box.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, he does. So he plays an integral part of that. And then at the end, the kind of the last scene after the credits and everything, they're all going to go after Doomsday, or not Doomsday,
Darkseid.
Darkseid, because Darkseid kind of, this was all, in this movie, it was all Darkseid's elaborate plan to take down Superman and the Justice League so that he could come and take over Earth. And so he's manipulating Hank Henshaw. He's doing all of that, all those things. And so this was a pretty big play by Darkseid, and he's trying to come to Earth, and they stop him just in the nick of time. And then in doing that, at the end, they're like, hey, we got to go and stop Doomsday. So it kind of shows where they're going with the next. That's one of the things I like about these DC cartoons, is that a lot of them, they kind of have this progression to them, and they kind of follow these storylines that were there. And so the fact that the Justice League gets together and they're like, we're gonna go after him, and then all of a sudden Lex Luthor shows up at the end in his classic green and purple outfit, and says, basically, I'm going with you, and I'm a part of this. Hey, team, let's go do this. Yeah. That was interesting. That was cool to see. Yeah. So.
And I loved the Green Lantern's joke at the end, how he's like, oh yeah, who left the back door open?
Yes. Yes, that was...
Where they're up in the watchtower in space.
Yeah, surprisingly, Batman played a very little role.
Yeah.
In this whole thing. Batman didn't really play much of a role in the death or return of Superman, and so, but... That being said, he's still very little from Batman. This whole day. I think we saw more out of Martian Manhunter, and definitely Wonder Woman than Batman. I think Batman only had a couple of lines. It was also
Lantern had more than he did.
It was also interesting. I loved Lois Lane in this.
Yeah.
She's a very strong character in this. I love when her and Diana, Wonder Woman, get together in the restaurant, and Diana thinks that. Because in this iteration, Clark, because it's New 52 iteration, Clark has dated Diana and dated Wonder Woman, and so she thinks that she's getting together to kind of mourn with her, and she's like, no, I just need to talk to you about the story and talk to you about these Supermen that are coming, these imposters, and she's like, whew, good, because I could not deal with that. I don't have many girlfriends, and Lois says neither do I, and so at the very end, when that's all done, her and Lois are now friends.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're gonna get together, and they tell Clark basically, we're getting together, we're gonna go hang out.
Yeah, I think it was Wonder Woman called Clark when Lois and Clark are at the lunch or dinner. And she's like, oh yeah, tell Lois I'll see her on Friday.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, and Clark is just like, worlds collide, right? Yeah. And so those were some cool little things and little nuances that were in there. So one of the things I did love about the movie that was very much like both the comics and in this movie, and that's Bibbo. Bibbo, who owns the Ace of Spades bar.
Yeah. That's
Bibbo. He's talking about his pal Superman and doing Bibbo would always do anything that he could to help Superman. Yeah. And in the comics.
It was very well done in this movie.
And so Bibbo was Bibbo in this movie, and so I like that. One thing I noticed, because I rewatched the end, and I did think it was kind of funny. There's a guy and I don't know if this was a mistake or he's just supposed to be another guy, but they drew him exactly the same. And that is, there's a guy who looks just like John Henry Irons when John Henry Irons is in the Fortress of Solitude dealing with the Eradicator and all that stuff. Bibbo is trying to get everybody together to go, protest the cyborgs. And there's a guy who looks just like John Henry Irons in the bar there who's like with the rest of them, like, yeah, we're going to go. So I don't know if like there was originally some other part of the storyline or whatever, and they kind of abandoned it, yet they kept the animation, right? Because he looks just like John Henry Irons. So, but I mentioned the Fortress of Solitude. I love the fact that the Fortress of Solitude in this looks like the classic Christopher Reeve Superman Fortress of Solitude. That was really cool that it looked like that and that it had that aesthetic to it. It was a good movie. Like I said, it doesn't follow it exactly. It takes a lot of liberties.
But it was enjoyable.
But at least this time around, it looks like it. And then of course, one of my favorite parts is at the end. They do a similar trick now in the original. After Superman had died and come back, they had to figure out a way to bring Clark back.
Yeah.
Right? And say that Clark was back. So what they did was they used at that time Supergirl, who was not really Kara Zor-El. It was an alien called Matrix, and
Yeah.
it was a shape-shifting alien, and so that had taken the shape and the form of Supergirl, and so she shape-shifted and became Clark for that aspect. So I love the fact that they kept that scene, but they just used Martian Manhunter instead, and explained that, and that was cool. And then so you had that classic moment that was in the original. And then I also like too when they were showing newspaper clippings of the four Supermen, they actually used recreations of some of the comic covers from the Reign of the Superman storyline. So that was also pretty cool. It's like these little callbacks to things was really nice to see. And I appreciate those kind of things. I really do. I appreciate that they showed some effort in what they did, for sure. But also with the Fortress of Solitude, having Superman be in use his ship, his spacecraft, and he just looked really cool flying that. And then I love at the end that they change him out of that New 52 Superman costume into a more traditional, almost Henry Cavill-like Superman costume, and then show him flying around the world, just kind of like Christopher Reeve used to do. That was kind of cool. So those are all things that I like. Anything else that you guys saw that like stood out to you as being something that like you just really liked about the movie?
I just liked the way that the story came together. I liked the comedy. I liked the serious parts. I liked, the stuff with Lois and Diana, and just I loved all of the way that it kind of came together and answered questions. It gave you more, but then it also it was just very enjoyable all around, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely a good entry into the DC animated universe. I mean, they just keep knocking it out of the park with these, and so. So I would love to see some other classic Superman tales turned into these animated features, because they do a lot of Batman ones.
They do.
There's a lot of Batman ones. They've pretty much taken every major They've done a really good job, but I mean they've pretty much done every major Batman storyline. The Jason Todd thing and just pretty much everything in between. And so
Son of Batman.
Yeah, Son of Batman and
Dark Knight.
Yeah, the Dark Knight Returns, all those things, and so they need to start doing some of these Superman stories that have been classics, and bring those back as well. And so
Definitely.
I really hope that they do that. But in the meantime, this was great, and I would suggest this to anyone. Now, you guys, out of 10, Tiffany, what would you give this Reign of the Superman?
Just because I didn't know the storyline as well. I mean, I would say like an 8.5, 9 though, because I think I would put it up very high up there because it was enjoyable, it was informational, it was funny, it was cute, it was everything in between. It made me wonder, when the Justice League was over on that, whether it was a planet or a portal or whatever they were on, I was like, well, how are they gonna get back? They have to get back because. So it kept me engaged, and so with that alone, and only not giving it a full 10 because of not knowing the full storyline and knowing from you that they didn't follow it 100%. Like I said, 8.5, 9 is what I give it though, because I thought it was very good and it's very, very much worth watching.
Very good. Isaac, what do you think?
I'd say like a 7 or an 8. It was like we said earlier, they didn't really 100% follow the comics. They didn't need to, but they didn't use much of the comics for it.
Yeah.
So that was one problem that I had. And then same thing with the art style. It was just like they still used the New 52 art style.
Yeah, I don't know why.
We're not huge fans, but it doesn't deter us from watching.
I mean, the New 52 has not been around now for almost 3 years,
Yeah.
and they're still using that animation style. Well, now they did get away from it with Superman here at the end of this one, so hopefully they're gonna move past
Bring
that.
it around town.
We're gonna move past that, but yeah, it's been kind of weird that they've held on to that animation style and those designs long after DC has moved on and did Rebirth and things.
You have to
like
have had Rebirth for all this time.
Yeah. So I give this, because I thought the story was good. It didn't follow. I would give it a 7.5, and it's really like I'm with you. Like if I didn't know the other story, I'd score it higher because it is a good story.
And that's just the only reason I did.
And so I feel bad for scoring it a 7.5. I feel like I should be scoring it probably like an 8.5. that he should get an extra point, but I have to take the point off just because I do know the story, and I know that they didn't really put the time in to just go ahead and remake the story that everybody knows and loves, and I know that they want to do things creatively to put in, surprises and make it, different or whatever. But, what are you gonna do? I still say it was good. It's definitely worth seeing. If you have not seen it, I would say you got to see Death of Superman first. It's not something that you can just watch one or the other. You need to watch both of them, and so watch Death of Superman first, and then of course watch Reign of the Superman. This will be definitely one that I'll be buying. Now we have the DC Universe, and I bought the Death of Superman because the Death of Superman came out before DC Universe did, and I didn't realize it was going to be on there. And I haven't bought all the DC movies, and I'm glad I didn't, because now they're on the universe, and I can watch all these Batman stories and all these things. But this is definitely one that I need to add to my collection, and it's one of my favorite now animated features. I still say that probably my favorite DC animated feature is still All-Star Superman.
Yeah,
All-Star Superman is
movie.
just a great movie. And the story is tremendous, and just everything about that. It's a great Superman story, and tells a great Superman story. So, definitely. If you get a chance, see All-Star Superman. But if you get the chance, go ahead and watch.
Just watch all the Super movies.
Yes, there you go. Watch Death of Superman.
That's
and
your homework.
And of course, Reign of the Superman. And then let us know what you guys thought of it down in the comment section. Have you seen this yet? Let us know what you think, because we want to hear from you guys. All right. That's why we do this channel. That's why we have it. Is because of you guys, and and we love having conversations with you. So please leave a comment down in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Follow us on social media. All of our links to all that is in the description below, and be a part of this growing community. It seems like just a couple of weeks ago we were talking about wanting to get to 5,000 subscribers, and we are now quickly on our way to 6,000 subscribers. We're
all because
almost
of
there.
you guys. So thank you. Keep
you guys
it
are
coming.
great. You're the greatest YouTube fans ever. All right, be looking for tomorrow. We're gonna
say it like comic book guy.
Greatest group ever. And then we'll be figuring out another giveaway, because we will be doing a monthly giveaway. All right, so look forward to that. All right, so if you don't win this one, it's okay. I feel bad a little bit, because so many people have expressed interest in this figure, and I wish that we could
love me. They
I
really
wish
love
that
me.
I could give you one. I wish I could give one to everybody, but I just can't. All right, but you know what? If you don't win this one, don't worry, because you can still be in the running for something else
Heck yeah.
next month. All right. Until then, my name is Enosh, aka Enosh Fett, along with the lovely
Tiftastic or Grandtifftarkin.
and of course
Isaac Juan Kenobi.
just saying, look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh no, it's 4 guys posing as Superman, and then there's a
gotta
5th
figure
guy in
out
a
which
rocket
one it
ship
is.
with a slight color me bad beard and long hair. All right. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye bye.